Sooner or later, in most games, someone or something has to die. Some games don't make a big deal out of it, and other games try to make you lose your lunch. Not surprisingly, the most revolting finishers we could find came from some of the industry's biggest games, so ending each character with a gruesome flair has proven to be good for business. We looked at everything: boss deaths, player deaths, NPC deaths. From Pac-Man to Postal 2, we stomached as much as we could stand. The standouts were the deaths that we could remember on their own, without just recollecting the gory games they came from. We're not promoting video game violence, we're just saying that sometimes it's awesome.
Eva, auf Wiedersehen.
Number 10. The Punisher.
The Punisher wouldn't have an identity without his violent tendencies, and his 2005 game let him not only send lead into everyone that got in his way, Frank Castle could interrogate them in dangerous situations with progressively more disturbing outcomes. All of these are ghastly in their own special way, and it was tough not to give it to the pool of man-eating piranhas, but shoving a screaming man into a wood chipper struck us as being the most brutal. The game sadly switches to monochrome during the slice and dice, but it makes up for it by holding on the helpless thug, pleading for his life, before the Punisher turns him into splinters.
Shit!
Number 9. Blood Rain 2.
If you're playing Blood Rain 2, you're playing for the gratuitous violence. Rain is prone to playing with her food, throwing stuff around, slicing it up, and generally making a mess of things. Some of the feeding fatalities are particularly brutal, but this one takes the cake. After grabbing an enemy from behind for a quick meal, the target is lifted overhead and taken for a spin, going from whole human being to quadruple amputee with no head in a matter of seconds. There's just not much more you can do to mess somebody up.
No.
Number 8. Syphon Filter.
Before Solid Snake or Sam Fisher took their dominant positions in the stealth action genre, Syphon Filter's Gabe Logan was once in the running during the early days of the PlayStation 1. Set out to defend Washington, D.C. from an onslaught of terrorists, the operative is equipped with the usual suspects of weaponry, and an air taser, which fires a long probed cable into unsuspecting enemies to deliver a lethal shot. But what made this weapon so memorable was that players could keep their buttons pressed to continually administer the lethal charge as enemies twitched uncontrollably and began wailing in pain, only to be hushed by smoke and flames erupting from their flesh. It's a video game death that's hard to forget.
Number 7. Gears of War.
In multiplayer games, death is such a regular occurrence we don't even pay attention to it. We wait to respawn and charge back into the meat grinder. That we die isn't nearly as important as how we die. It's only when insult is added to injury that we really take notice, and no multiplayer kill is more offensive than the Gears of War curb stomp. It sends the message that the player died not for honor or glory, but because they suck at Gears of War, and that's even more frightening than a cracked skull.
Number 6. Red Dead Redemption.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings and spoilers, but Jack Marston doesn't make it out of Red Dead Redemption before becoming a Ghost Rider in the sky. We'll spare you the details, but it's safe to say his blaze of glory makes Charlie Sheen's demise in Young Guns look like kids playing laser tag. It's loud, it's bloody, and it goes on for much longer than you'd expect. We certainly thought of the myriad of ways you can make violence happen in each Grand Theft Auto game, but with all the possible variables, there's no specific experience we can all agree on. Anyone who's played Red Dead Redemption can testify it ends with a bang.
Number 5. Tomb Raider.
The latest iteration of Tomb Raider changed Lara from a cartoon character to someone far more realistic. In this new incarnation, she's more human and vulnerable, and it's easy to see her as a real person with real feelings. When we see her sustain even minor injuries, we open our hearts to her. Then our open and vulnerable hearts get impaled on a rusty metal pole that goes through her neck and out the back of her head. Killing her instantly would be kind, but those that haven't already looked away get to see her nervous system flail its last. It would be one thing to have her killed by an enemy, but to get slaughtered while crossing a river gives us no one to blame but ourselves.
Number 4. Dead Space.
Isaac Hayes just keeps drawing the short stick. While he's trying to amputate his way to salvation, the Necromorphs, likewise, have no problem playing pincushion with his fragile form. With so many ways to die in space, who really cares if anyone can hear you scream? Even with the diversity of hulking, fetid flesh, the most unsettling was the Divider, who will creep toward Isaac and attempt to pop off his head. Succumbing to strangulation and decapitation, the head plants its roots into the gaping neck wound and reanimates Isaac immediately.
Number 3. God of War 3.
Kratos is a murder pro, spilling gallons of gore while his feet stay steady, never slipping on the viscera from whatever mythical creature he just disemboweled. As a patricidal, fratricidal, human-sacrificing miscreant with anger issues, it was hard to select his murder masterwork, but we decided the brutality and intimacy of Poseidon's demise was what made our insides lurch. Jumping into Poseidon's POV for his own murder is unsettling, with the quick cuts and quick-time events making you an active participant in the pummeling, layering in despair-drenched crawls, with the final neck snap ushering a thunderous tsunami.
Number 2. Resident Evil 4.
There were so many amazing deaths involving Leon, it was hard to pick just one. We know we'll never forget our first bout with the chainsaw. In the end, the showdown with the U3 boss proved to be the most violent. After surviving a close encounter with the Fiend only moments before, you're hurled into a small arena where the U3 reveals its true form. If you fail to dodge or are too slow to react to its attack, a grim fate awaits. Its sharp blades will cut clean through Leon's body and slice him in half, spilling the hero's blood and entrails in gruesome fashion. The imagery of this brutal death still makes us shudder each time.
Number 1. Mortal Kombat.
For a game whose primary hook is the spectacle of glorified and gorified death in the form of iconic fatalities, it's hard to make an argument against Mortal Kombat being at the top of this list, especially since the original game met with so much controversy that it set in motion the establishment of the ESRB rating system. With more than a decade's worth of fatalities to choose from, we felt none of them were as cringeworthy and gut-wrenching than one of Noob Saibot's fatalities from the 2011 reboot named Make-A-Wish. There's nothing like the morbid sound of snapping bones and tearing flesh accompanying the unsightly demonstration of your victim being entirely split in half from the groin up. But not before taking an extra second to see the pained expression on their face before the deed is done and their head follows. It's not often a winner is so clear-cut, but not many games can come close to the creative masterpieces of mortality that you'll find at MK, and this fatality stood above the mangled corpses of the competition as our number 1 violent video game death.
Noob Saibot wins. Fatality.